Welcome to Packmates, a podcast about Magic the Gathering Limited, where we take a deep dive into the current limited format. The Packmates are a group of friendly card sharks like drafting, hanging out, and going to FNM and getting them dubs. Today we are talking pre-release and our favorite and least favorite commons from the new set. Don't forget to check out our socials, links are in the description. If you ever need any help with cuts for a deck, figuring out what that 39th and 40th cards are, we'd be happy to help you out. I'm Joel, your resident combo expert.
I'm Andrew, your resident mid-range expert.
I'm Ryan, your resident aggro expert, and we are
We are
the
the Pack.
Packmates. All right. What do we got first, Joel?
So we're going to be looking at the deck that won our Ryan's pre-release deck, and then the person who won our pre-release deck. We had a pretty stacked pre-release. We had how many? 60 people or so,
Yeah,
right?
60.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
60 was
definitely a
6
pretty
rounds.
impressive deck.
I think it was technically 61 because one dude had a buy, but yeah.
Dang, yeah, a lot of people.
Yep. So yeah, I went Simic. I had a couple pretty decent rares, starting with Bristlebud Farmer. That's the 4-mana 5/5 trample. When he ETBs, makes 2 foods. And then when he attacks, you can sacrifice a food, mill 3, and get a permanent from among those into your hand. That card was just super busted. Like, often drew me 2 additional permanents to add to the board. And my deck had a ton of permanents in it, so I never whiffed. I did only hit lands sometimes, and those felt bad, but sometimes you need lands. Like, it's better than like drawing 3 lands, that's for sure. So that card was good. The other real big standout rare I had was 3 Steps Ahead. This is a 1-mana instant with Spree. You can add 1 in a blue to counter a spell. You can add 3 to create a token that's a copy of target creature or artifact you control, or you can add 2 to draw 2, then discard. The sickest mode of this is countering and copying. So 6 mana, it's insane. 6 mana, it's insane. I had a moment where a guy tried to kill my 5/4 trample, gain 3 life, and I countered it and copied it, and that just won me the game. So that card was really good. Smuggler's Surprise was another rare I had. This is a 1-mana green instant with Spree. You can pay 2 more to mill 4 cards and put up to 2 creatures and/or lands from among the milled cards into your hand. You can pay 5 to put 2 creatures from your hand in the battlefield, and 1 to give creatures you control with power 4 or greater, hexproof and indestructible. I sideboarded this out quite often. The best use I ever got from it was I was stuck on 2 land and a mana dork, and I milled 4 and got a land and a dude. And if you're gonna use it for that, I think it's fine. But I feel like, any other way to draw a couple cards would be better. I was mostly just a bunch of big dummies, like a bunch of guys that plot for 4 and are huge. Spinewood Paladins were insane. That's the 5-mana 5/4 trample, ETB gain 3 life. Plot it for 4 though. And plotting anything for 4 on turn 3 with a mana dork just feels like a formula where it's really hard for you to lose the game. Because often turn 4, especially with that mana dork, like you're playing 2 Spinewood Paladins on turn 4, and it's like, what are they gonna do?
Yeah,
Oh,
so that
Mhm.
experience where even when I didn't have the mana dork and I just plotted on 4, it was amazing. So having that a full turn earlier, yeah, I can imagine how hard it would be to lose from there.
yeah, it was insane. Or like mana, or Spinewood into Bristlebud Farmer was insane. I played the Bristlepack Sentries because I was like kind of scared of aggro because my deck was so slow. They
Mhm.
were they were mediocre. Like they were fine. They were a pretty big wall to get through, and with my counters and stuff, they incentivized people to take game actions on my turn before combat, before I spent my mana to play my big dudes, so I could use my counters on my turn before I tapped out instead of playing my stuff and then not having counter mana available. Because they kill the 5/4, now this guy can't attack. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
that was fairly good for me. And Phantom Interference often felt really good, but there were times where it was kind of mediocre. I think it'll be better in draft than it was in sealed. If you ever get to that 5 mana or 4 mana, if you have one of the guys that reduce the cost by 1 and you can counter the spell and make it 2/2, it's a pretty big swing. But the deck felt good when I first built it. I wasn't super impressed with it. Like, I wasn't very happy with it. I just like a bunch of big dummies, but it played really well. I was able to do some ridiculous things. Like, I had a couple other rares in here. I had Duelist of the Mind, that's the 0/3 Flying Vigilance when you commit a crime loot, but its powers equal to the number of cards you drew this turn. So on turn 3, I plotted Plan the Heist, which is draw 3. And on turn 4, I played Duelist of the Mind, drew 3 cards, and then played the 2 mana Where is it?
Tumbleweed Rising.
Tumbleweed Rising. Create an XX where X is the greatest power among creatures you control and made a 4/4. So on turn 4, I made, I had a 1/3 flyer, vigilance, and a 4/4. And that was pretty insane. Another card that won me some games that I maybe shouldn't have won was Full Steam Ahead. That's the overrun variant, 5 mana sorcery. Each creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains trample. This creature can't be blocked by more than one creature. So none of the all of your dudes get +2/+2 and trample and can only be blocked by one guy. So you're just doing a ton of damage. They have to spread their dudes out. And it's almost a one-sided board wipe, at parity or anything better than parity. And then the last card I was super impressed with was Geralf the Fleshright. With all the plot cards, it was very easy to play him, play a plot card, and maybe play one more, cheaper card like Tumbleweed Rising or the 1 mana 1/1 that taps something, and make a 2/2 and a 3/3 zombie. And in games I did that, I didn't lose. I can only imagine how insane Giza is going to be, honestly. Geralf felt super insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the deck. It played really well. I was very happy with it.
Yeah, just the green in it. The green in the set feels pretty strong. I was very impressed by it.
Yeah, green was very strong. The blue was fine. But I ended up making it all the way to the championship undefeated and losing in the championship to the next deck we're going to talk about. So he was Gruul, green and red, and his two main attractions were Stingerback Terror. That's the 4 mana flying trample 7/7, but it gets -1/-1 for each card in your hand. Often by turn 4, it's a 4/4, maybe bigger. And by the time it can swing, it's usually definitely bigger. And he also had Terror of the Peaks. That's the 5 mana 5/4 flyer. Spells your opponent's cast that target it costs an additional 3 life to cast, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Tear the Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target. With plot and stuff, that was just insane. Terror the Peaks with a 5/4 plotted is just kill your biggest guy and have two huge guys that are impossible to deal with. My deck didn't really have any hard removal. I mean, I obviously sided some in. When I saw this, just Tornado, destroy a flyer, and I sided in a bounce spell, just so you couldn't get the full value off Terror of the Peaks. And he just had a bunch of big dummies. His deck was very similar to mine, but he had a lot more removal and a few less dudes. And a lot of his removal was fight or bite stuff that was pretty vulnerable to removal. And my deck didn't really take advantage of that. One thing I wanted to note was Take for a Ride felt really good in his deck. Just having big dudes and then taking their biggest dude, especially big flyers, because often they can only block one of your big flyers. Maybe.
Yeah.
So you take their dude that can block your flyers and you're crashing in for, 10 easy, not counting whatever other guys you have or what else. It just felt like just playing big guys. It didn't matter what they were. They're big. It was pretty good and sealed. He mentioned Sterling Hound was very good for him. That's the 3 mana colorless 3/2 when it enters battlefield surveil 2. And that kind of points to another set where sequencing is fairly important. And I
Was it
agree.
Dominaria? Was automatic librarian that scryed too?
It
In
Yeah.
that and
It
that guy
was
turned out to be pretty good in that set,
Yep.
surprisingly.
having people who are so divided on that card. People who refuse to put it on their deck if they got it 15th pick, and people who were happy taking it 5th or 6th pick. And I was definitely in the trend. I love my automatic librarian.
Me
Yeah.
too. I was in
I
the camp of liking him.
I refuse to play it.
Yeah.
Um Sterling Hound seems fine. I still don't feel like I would be happy playing it in this format where everything is so strong.
It's just interesting the amount of lack of 2 drops, more 3 drops and up. I mean, gosh, if this guy missed a land drop, it was probably lights out.
He mentioned he was playing 18 lands.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense with this high level of curve here.
Yeah.
That he definitely an 18 land deck. I'm sure those trick shots did a lot of work for him once he got up to 5.
Yeah,
I
once
mean,
you make it there, they definitely can hit, but you got to make
yeah,
it to 5 and still be doing well.
yeah. That Terror of the Peaks though is just so brutal if you have no answer for it.
Yeah, I just needed him not to draw one of his 2 bombs every game. I mean, I won the game I was on the play quite handily. He won both the games he was on the play. I think that was a fairly important thing in this matchup. And I think a lot of his cards just felt better than a lot of my cards. Like Cactus Foot Sure Shot,
Yeah.
Aloe Alchemist would have been insane in my deck.
Mhm.
the Beast Spawn Outcaster. That's the guy that draws a card if you have a power 4 or greater. Would have been a
Yeah.
lot better than some of my cards. Cactarantula, I didn't have any of those. That card's really good. But yeah, his deck was good. He played well. So yeah,
I
that's how I
was
lost.
I think I was 2 for 3 about blowing out people who played Betrayal of the Vault at the vault with just a good removal spell on their creature when they cast it.
You have to be
But
really careful with it for
Yeah.
sure.
yeah.
I had Betrayal of the Vault in my deck, and my rules for myself were if they ever tap out and I have it, I don't care how little value I'm getting, I'm killing the things. And then the other one was that even if they're holding open like the 2 mana, if they're like black and they could have like the destroy target non-outlaw thing, like
Yeah.
just super conscious of which removal spells they could have. Right? If
Yeah.
they've got 4 or 5 mana in black, I'm never casting it right. Even if
Yeah.
they've got two and I can cast on an outlaw or a non-outlaw, I'm definitely casting on an outlaw, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
I think
Yeah,
you got to be super careful of how you time that, and then think about every card they could have.
it is absurd when it lands, though.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, it's an instant loss, like, or at
Yeah,
least it felt like it to me. When Joel
I
cast against me, like, "Oh, crap."
I
yeah,
cast it 4 times, and I don't think I lost any of the games I cast it.
yeah, yeah. Let's talk about your deck, Joel. How'd you end up?
Yeah, I went red, green, white, and I ended up going 4-1. I had a loss where I just got screwed a couple of games, and I just didn't hit my land drops. Kept a 2-lander on the draw with 2 of my 3 colors. It was a little bit sketchy, but it seemed like a reasonable keep at the time. Um, some of the cards I was pretty impressed by. I had the green white unicorn. It's a 2 mana, a green and a white, and it's a first strike lifelink, and that's already just insane. Right? I play a 2 mana 2/2 first strike lifelink any day. But then it's also got saddle for 4, and if you attack while it's saddled, you get to make a 3/3 flyer.
Wow.
Which, yeah, was just absolutely insane. The best curve I ever had, I played that on turn 2, and then on turn 3, I played Jolene, Plundering Pugilist. It's a 3 mana 4/2. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater attacks, you make a treasure, and you can sack the treasures to ping something. But then on turn 3 on the play, I saddled that, attacked with my 2/2 first strike lifelink into my opponent's 2/2, made a 3/3 flyer, and they were like, I don't have anything next turn. You're gonna have 2 3/3 flyers. I'm just gonna concede. You know, just
Yeah,
felt like I won the game on turns 2 and 3, which obviously, I needed a 2 mana rare, the Seraphic Steed. I remember the name. And then, a 3 mana uncommon. But when you had to start like that, it did just feel completely unbeatable.
yeah.
Mhm.
That sounds insane.
Some of the other cards I was impressed by, I had the new Magda. That's another rare. It's whenever you commit a crime, you create a tapped treasure token. It's a 2 mana, one and a red. And then when you can sacrifice 3 treasures to make a 4/4 flying haste dragon. And it is so easy to commit crimes. I had a game where I played that on turn 2, and I committed a crime for the next 5 turns, I want to say. So I got my dragon in 3 turns, and then I got a couple more treasures just to use the next couple turns, and it was just completely over by that point. I played a 2 mana 2/2 that made me mana and made a 4/4 dragon. Like, absolutely insane. I also had a lot of fight and bite effects, almost entirely bites. Throw from the saddle, and then there was a list one, the 2 and a green to get +1/+1 and bite. Uh, they were mostly good, but I did lose the one game where I ran into like an instant speed black removal deck, where it just made things super awkward.
Yeah.
So that's something to definitely be aware of. That was pretty much the highlights of my deck. I had a few other really bomby cards. I think it's called Railway Brawler. It's a 5 mana 5/5 reach trample that whenever another creature ETBs under your control, you double its power and toughness with
Mm.
counters. It's just permanent.
Jeez.
Um, so I had a game where I curved out with that, where I plotted on 4 because it's got plot for 4. On 4, I cast it, and then I immediately cast a Spinewood Paladin with a 5/4 that gains 3 on ETB. That becomes a 10/9. Right? And then next turn I untapped and I cast Tumbleweed Rising. So I made a 10-10 that then doubled its power and became a 20-20. So on turn 6, I had like 35 power in play in
Yeah.
limited, which, felt completely unbeatable, and it was.
Very cool. Very cool. That
So
sounds absurd.
it was so much fun. And my opponent immediately dropped from the event.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Oh, man.
Lots of feel bad moments for sure in this, but lots of just like holy cow, I just did a crazy thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I had a lot of fun playing this. It was an awesome time.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun playing with these cards too.
There were a lot of good, like, cool moments that these cards have because of the power level, right?
Yeah.
Like,
The
I
power
think
level
that's
does feel very pushed.
yeah. For my pre-release, I went 3-2. I had one match there where I just kind of got blown out. It was my colors. My colors were really bad. I went Grixis, and I think I was just too color dependent on things. I got screwed on 4, but realistically, I needed like double of something. If I'd had double of something in one of the games, I think I would have been all right. But it was just felt really bad when I was flipping the Wolverine. I'd plot it, and then I'm like, okay, I'm playing it right. You play it the next turn, all your mana's up, and then you're just looking down and you're like, damn, I don't have that double blue. I don't have that double red to cast these spells. And they're just like really impactful spells.
When
So
you flip your rare off the Wolverine and then you don't have the mana to cast it, it feels so bad.
I had what was it? Electro Dominance. It was one of the big sheet or big scorecards, I think. It's just like deal X damage to any target, then you get to cast something of X or less value without paying its mana cost from your hand. And so I had a really funny game where I got to 9 mana somehow with a couple of treasures, and I also had Cruel Ultimatum in my deck.
Oh wow.
Oh
Yeah.
god.
So I went upkeep. Okay, go to your draw step after you're drawn. Deal 7 damage to one of your, was it say, yeah, deal 7 damage to one of your guys, and I'll cruel ultimatum you.
Jesus.
It was not good. They discarded their entire hand, the card they just drew, lost everything basically on the board, and that was pretty much, we were just wrapping up the game after that.
I actually
I
had a question about that red guy that you were saying that exiles the top card.
Uh-huh.
You cannot plot that top card, right? Like, because you have to plot from your hand.
I think plot's only from the hand. I don't think you can
Yeah,
plot
It
from
says
from hand.
okay.
yeah.
I just wanted to verify.
Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah. So I had that, and then I had two of the 2/2 flyers. There is it colored, and they have 2/2s with haste and flying, and then if you cast a second spell of the turn, you get to investigate. And I thought they were pretty decent. They were pretty nice on two, and just like getting in there. Everybody kind of dealt with them pretty quick because you just realize it's a major clock on you. But it is just like a nice, just little bit of removal here and there. I also had the rare that you had actually, the 3 steps ahead, and I found that to be pretty dang good. It was like somewhere in between Archmage Charm and Sublime Epiphany. Is that right? Is that the 6 mana one?
It
Yeah.
is. No,
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
spiritual cousin of those kind of cards.
I mean, I
and
often cast it for 3, just counter a spell. Like counter target spell. They have the 2 extra mana, but they plotted something insane, right? And it's like, that's not resolving.
Yeah, and there were so many times where that card had saved me. I did it for the full benefit of it one time, the full everything spree, and it
Yeah.
felt so damn strong.
Yeah.
It's like wow. Anytime you're countering a spell, drawing cards, and if you happen to make, just like so much value in that card. But yeah, the deck was fine. I think I was just when I was building, I got really just like into casting Cruel Ultimatum, but I don't think I had quite the lands to do it really well and efficiently. I had some of the treasure producers to try to get that smoothed out, and I think I could have taken an extra land in my deck and been happy with it. Although, the one game that I did lose that was like, I think my opponent like mulled a 5 and I was on 7, kept a 4 land hand and drew like 9 lands straight.
Oof.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I was like, damn, I hadn't had a loss like that in a long time. It took me a second just to like get my mindset back. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, it's tough when you look at that and then you look at the top card, it's still a land. It's like, damn, I guess somebody wanted me to really lose this game. But that's magic, that's variance. But it
Yeah.
just felt even more from behind too with the power level of the set though. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just like the 3 or 4 things or the 2 things maybe he kept in his hand were just like absolute haymakers. And so I guess that's something with sealed in itself. Like I was telling Ryan earlier, I'm sitting there opening my packs and I get like 7 rares, and the person inside of me just got like 13 rares in their pool. And it's like, damn, that is some big disparities there. And so that's going to be something to think about when you're in your RCQ seasons. It's like, man, this format is very, very swingy.
Yep. Yep. It's gonna be swingy, but yeah, I was fairly happy with how my deck performed, and I felt like I had none of the, 10 out of 10 bomb type cards. Do you guys have any bad cards in your deck that you ended up like really not liking?
Not particularly, no. The only ones that I was a little skeptical of in the one match was the fight spell for two that cares about mounts.
Mhm.
And I didn't have I had a singular mount in my deck, throw from the saddle. And I think that
Yeah.
card's just pretty good. But the problem was I just had too many of those effects, essentially, and ended up cutting it for a Tumbleweed Rising after my first or second match, somewhere in there. And it wasn't even that the card was bad per se. It was just like a deck building error. I needed a couple more creatures.
Yeah.
Mm.
I played a giant beaver. That's the 4 mana 4/4 vigilance with like crew 3. And if it's crewed and attacks, it puts a counter on the thing that crewed it. And that just felt severely outclassed at all times that it was played.
I played an Iron Fist Pulverizer that I was like, it seemed all right when I was like way ahead
What's that one
and
do?
able to cast spells, but I think you're past the point of casting double spells when you're playing a 5 cost. And so I ended up taking him out and just putting in some guy who's I think it was a guy who comes and play, it's colorless. I think it's a 3/2 for 3 colorless, gains 2 life when you come into play, and you get to tap it for a mana.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah, the
that'll
Iron
probably.
Fist Pulverizer. It's when you cast your second spell each turn, it deals
Mhm.
2 to your opponent, and you scry one. And it's a 5 mana 4/5 for each.
That
So just
makes
kind of
sense.
funky.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like on 5, it's like, how many times are you gonna double spell again?
Yeah. It seems like the reach is the most important part about that card, maybe.
Yeah.
Either you need it or you don't, right?
Yeah, at some point, you're gonna probably wanna side that in at some point just because it's a red reach creature.
Yeah.
We've been spoiled on those so many times where they've costed, like, 3 or 4. Yeah, it's like, I think we're getting back to form with them being at, like, 5.
Or like examples where it's like it's a 5 mana 4/5, like what was it, Onaki Javelin here, where it taps to deal 2 every turn, it's guaranteed, instead
Yeah.
of this, which does it, if you double spell, which is just feels almost strictly worse, right?
The
Yeah,
one
oh,
in
yeah.
Dominaria that ETB steals 4 or 5. Like that one was insane too.
Oh yeah. And that was a
Ooh,
4 drop,
that was a
Yeah.
good one. That was a good
right?
one.
Like yeah.
Yeah.
I think was he a 5 drop? He was domain, right?
I thought it
Yeah.
was 2 and a red. Maybe it was 5 though.
Yeah, I think
Or
because
2
you
and
could
2
do
red, I think.
the yeah.
Yeah, that
Either
card
way, that
sucked.
guy was amazing.
All
That guy
right.
was pickable for a while.
Yeah, that card was good for sure. Next up, we have our favorite comments. We're gonna start off with white. I have trained Arnix. I haven't got to play with it yet, but I'm super excited to. It's the 2 mana 3/1 cat beast mount, and when it attacks while saddled, it gains first strike until end of turn, and you scry one, and you saddle it for 2. So I think these first strike cards with mercenaries and stuff running around are going to be pretty hard to deal with, lacking removal, and them using removal on your 2 drop is usually good for you too. So I think it's to be quite good.
I've got Holy Cow. It's a 2/2 flyer for 3, 2 colorless and a white. It's a Ox Angel with flash flying. And when Holy Cow enters the battlefield, you get to gain 2 life and scry 2. This is along the long line of two of two was it 3 cost flyers in white that just have abilities. We've had them draw a card and gain you a life. We've had them gain you 2 life. We've had them scry. And so now we've kind of found a good middle ground here, and I think this guy's going to be pushed enough to where he's just going to be really strong, and you're going to want to look out for him.
Yeah, you only get a scry one on them, right? Not
Yeah,
2.
it's just scry one.
It's
Yeah.
gain 2 life and scry 1. I thought it was 2 and 2 originally,
Mhm.
but it's still very good.
Yep.
For mine, I have Take Up the Shield. It's 1 and a white for an instant. You put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and it gains lifelink and indestructible until end of turn. So it's just a super versatile combat trick. You can use it to kind of blow out removal. You get a counter and it's indestructible. Or you can use it just for the lifelink. Lifelink is such a powerful keyword that anytime you're racing, getting a counter, lifelink, and indestructible just swings a race so much. It's just a
Mhm.
really versatile top tier combat trick.
Another Dominaria United All Star.
Yeah. What can I say? I like Dominaria United.
It
That was very, very good.
was a good set. It's a fun
Yeah.
set. All right. Next up we have blue. I have a weird one here. Janna Fool's Fall. This is 4 and a blue for a 4/3 flyer, but you can plot it for 4. I think anything that you can plot for 4 can be pretty insane, specifically if you have a mana dork and you can plot it a turn earlier. It's very hard to lose when on turn 3 you plot a 4 guy that should cost 5, and then turn 4 you play a guy that does cost 5. It just seems backbreaking. Especially against anyone that's not doing that, right? Like even the mono removal spells, like they have to pick which one they're going to kill. And he played really well for being sealed. I don't know if he'll be as good in draft, but I was very impressed with the way he played in sealed.
Seems a little sussy, but we'll
Yeah,
see.
I will admit I was skeptical, but
Yeah.
plotting for 4 did feel strong. I'll give it that.
I have Phantom Interference. It's one of the spree cards. It's cost 1 blue, and it has spree. And so for +3 mana, you can create a 2/2 white flying spirit creature. It's a token. And then for 1 extra, you can counter a target spell unless its controller pays 2. You never get like the full blow out of this card where you're just like being able to block a creature and counter something. But I think just tacking on a creature to this kind of thing seems pretty good as it goes on to the later game.
Yeah. Yep. It's one of those mana leaks that's never truly dead, which makes it good, right?
hmm
Yeah, it just makes it so much more limited playable compared to just the counter spell side.
Yep.
hmm
So for mine, I have Loan Shark. It's 3 and a blue for 3/4, and it just got plot for 3 and a blue as well. And when it ETBs, if you cast 2 or more spells this turn, you draw a card. Every single time this was played against me, or they plotted it against me, I just felt like it was so gross, so backbreaking. The one match I lost, he had 3 Lone Sharks in his deck, and he just started like chaining them together with some other stuff, and it just absolutely blew me out. Like 3/4 just defends well, and then it was always drawing a card. I did not see one that didn't draw a card. So
Yep. It
very
felt
good.
good in my deck too. All right. Next up, we have favorite black commons. I had Desperate Bloodseeker. This is 1 in a black for a 2/2 lifelinker. And when it enters the battlefield, target player mills 2 cards. I think it's just a solid 2 drop that commits a crime. Kind of does everything you want to do in black.
I've got Desert's Dew. It's 1 colorless, 1 black for an instant. Target creature gets -2/-2, and it gets an additional -1/-1 for each until the end turn for each desert you control. And so I had a couple of deserts here, and so I found this to be pretty good. I kind of preferred it over dealing damage to the creature in combat as like a combat trick, mainly because it was like order blockers, and then they were like, okay. They didn't really see what was going on after that.
Yeah.
So I actually ended up saving a creature with this just because of a bad, I don't want to say bad order of blocking, but I mean, they didn't know I had a combat trick like this. And
Yep.
so they just read the wrong combat trick.
Yeah. Seems good.
Yep. I have Consuming Ashes. It's 2 and 2 black. For an instant, you exile target creature. If it had mana value 3 or less, you're surveilled to. This one, you are pretty much always either going to be, even or positive on mana, if you're hitting anything with 4 or up. Or if you're hitting something smaller, it's just like a threat you need to deal with, like a Magda or something. You get that bonus upside of surveilling 2, smoothing your next draws. So just a premium removal spell.
Yep.
Very strong.
Saw a lot of those last night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, next up we have our favorite red commons. I didn't get to really play this, but it did blow me out one time, and that's Quick Draw. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 against first strike. Creatures target opponent controls lose first strike and double strike until end of turn for 1 mana.
Oh my gosh.
It's just a huge combat trick that also commits a crime, just tacked on. Oftentimes the crime won't do anything, but there are situations that it will do stuff, and those situations will feel like even more of a blowout.
Yeah, that could be.
Counter that spell with I think it's Blinding Light, where it counters the spell that targets you or a permanent you control. Because Quick Draw says target opponent controls lose first strike. So they're like, no, it doesn't counter this. And they're like, look at the bottom part. It targets me. I'll counter it. And it was just a really funny blowout.
Yeah.
Oh man. I've got Irrescribable Wolverine. It's a 3/2 for 2 colorless and a red, and it's a creature type Wolverine. When the Wolverine enters the battlefield, you get to exile the top card of your library until the end of turn, and you may play that card. And it also has plot 3. So most of the time I was plotting this and just trying to hit a land drop on the next turn. Yeah, so there's a little bit of gameplay with this one, but I found it pretty decently. Yeah, it screwed me a couple of times during the pre-release, but I'm not going to hold it against it.
Seems good.
Yeah, definitely a card I liked. For mine, I have Explosive Derailment. It's one of the spree cards, so you can pay 1 red and then 2 more to deal 4 damage to target creature. Then you can pay 2 more to destroy target artifact. The artifacts part, I didn't come up for me, didn't really see it come up for people, but just 3 mana to deal 4 at instant speed is pretty darn good. And then the upside of randomly having that kind of a braid modality of blowing up an artifact is pretty useful as well. So, just good removal.
Yep. 4 kills a lot of stuff, it seems like.
Yeah, even 5 drops. It's the 5/4 trample that gains 3 life in green. Like,
Yep.
it trades up in mana a lot of the time.
Kills the Terror of the Peaks, kills that Stingerback Terror a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Seems good. All right, next up we have our favorite green commons. I've just been super impressed with Tumbleweed Rising. I haven't got blown out on it yet. I'm sure I will sometime, but if you have enough big dudes and they kill your 4/4 and you only get to make a 3/3, it's not that big of a deal. Seems really good. That's the 2 mana sorcery, create an XX where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. I was really impressed with this card.
Did you plot it a lot, or did you actually just pay it for its mana cost?
I never plotted it.
Okay.
It was the card I played after I'd already plotted something, right? And then the turn that I played the plotted thing, like the 5/4, I'm playing a 3-drop in Rising often. It was
Mhm.
Geralf in Tumbleweed Rising, and it was stupid.
It was definitely impressive card. I spent 2 mana to make a 20/20, so I'm never gonna forget you.
Oh my god,
That's a 10/10 for 1 rate. That's pretty good.
that seems pretty strong. I had a Dance of the Tumbleweeds. This is a spree card. It's a 1 colorless and 1 green. And then for an additional 1, you get to search your deck for, or you search your library for a basic land card or a desert card. Put it in the battlefield. And just put it onto the battlefield, actually, not even tapped, which is just pretty good. And then you shuffle, of course. And then for 3 extra mana, you get to create an XX green elemental token creature where X is the number of value of lands you control. And I found this to be pretty good. It's kind of nice when your ramp spells just kind of do something in the later game.
Yeah. I was high on this card during previews.
Hmm.
Yeah, it just has this failsafe of, ramping on 3 and then casting a 5 butterfly is pretty decent. But
Hmm.
when it's like also good when you draw it when you have like 8 lands in play. It just gets so much better.
Hmm.
Yep.
In a very similar vein, I had Hard Bristle Bandit as my green common. It's 1 and a green for a 1/1, and it taps 4 mana of any color. And then whenever you commit a crime, you untap it, but it only triggers once each turn. Just a 2 mana dork that taps for any color of mana with then this random upside of making 2 mana in a turn is just awesome. I
Yeah.
was very impressed every time I saw that.
Yep,
Hmm.
it's a huge piece in the green deck that I want to play that where you want to plot on turn 3 all the time. All right, next up we have our least favorite white commons. I'm gonna go with bridled bighorn. This is 3 and a white for a 3/4 vigilance, and whenever it attacks while saddled, create a 1/1 white sheep creature token, and you saddle it for 2. This is mostly because the 4/4 vigilance didn't feel good enough, so I don't see a way where the 3/4 vigilance for 4 is gonna feel good enough.
Yeah, I feel like if you're gonna play those, you really gotta have some combat tricks to back them up.
Hmm.
Yep.
Or maybe just more removal or something. I don't know. You need some way to consistently attack with them.
Yep. And then saddling your 2-drop to make a 1/1, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel the best, I don't think.
Yeah.
I had Wanted Griffin as one of my least favorite white commons. It's 3 colors and a white for a 3/2 flyer. When the Wanted Griffin dies, you create a 1/1 mercenary token with target creature. When it taps, target creature you control gets +1/+0 until the end of turn. Activate this only as a sorcery. So it has one of the kind of key terms in here is those mercenary tokens are a key feature of the set. I
Oh,
thought this came into play and made you the made you the guy. I didn't realize it was a die trigger.
I thought that too,
yeah.
honestly. I ended
I,
up playing and I was like, "You get a mercenary, right?" And he was like, "No, it's when it dies." And I was like, "Oh, that's so much worse."
Yeah.
I want to go on the record and contest this pick. I think it's gonna
Okay.
be good.
Okay.
I think flying is insane in this set. And then when they do finally kill your flyer, you still get to buff another flyer. So on the record, Wanted Griffin I think is good.
Was not good when it was played against me. I did not have a game where they played that and I lost. Ever. I played against
Field.
it 3 times and all of them were just like, "Okay, you got a 3/2 flyer. I'll attack with my 5/4 trample."
Yeah.
Like,
That's going to be a big difference in sealed and draft. I do think it'll be bad in sealed for sure, but in draft, I think it'll be quite good.
I can see
Man,
that.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, for
maybe.
mine, I have Armored Armadillo. It's a 1 drop, just a single white mana. It's an 0/4 with Ward 1, and then you can pay 4 to give it +X/+O until end of turn, where X is its toughness. Um, this card just it doesn't feel like it does much. Like it keeps you alive if that's what you're trying to do. But I don't really think white is trying to do that nearly as much as something like green is. And then like paying 4 to pump it, it's just so much mana.
Yeah.
So did
Yep.
I
not
think
feel
it
like this card
fails
did
at
much.
oh, I was gonna say, I think it fails at just saddling other creatures. Like, if I want a 1/1, I want to be able to saddle some things. This guy just can't do that.
It would be
Yep.
really cool if they gave it this creature saddles using its toughness or some cool thing like that.
That'd have been awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you can saddle anything, but it's an 0/4 that blocks.
What was that?
Well,
What was that
when's the last
stupid?
time you guys saw armadillo riding something? Come on, armadillos
I don't
can't
remember.
mount things up.
The only times it's happened to me, I ran away because it was an armadillo on a mountain.
Actually, but, like that's terrifying. Tell me
Yeah,
an armadillo charging at you on a mount, and you don't run screaming.
yeah.
But
We need a Planet of the Armadillos movie for sure.
Well, we may get it in what's that new one, the set that's coming up where they're all
Oh yeah.
it may happen. Our dreams may come true. Nightmares.
definitely nightmares.
All right, next up we have our least favorite blue commons. I'm gonna go with Peerless Rope Master. This is 4 and a blue for a 4/4 human rogue. When it enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target tapped creature to its owner's
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
The tapped keyword there makes this card way less playable than they have been in the past. And cards like this in the past few sets, like generally cards like this were very good, right? But in the past few sets, they've been such high costed and have felt like they've been going downhill, and this one feels even worse than those. So that's where I'm at with it. I also disagree with Andrews this time too.
Oh, I'm sure as the resident aggro expert, you would definitely disagree with this. With Spring Splasher, it's a 2/1 for 1 colorless and 1 blue frog beast. When Splasher attacks, target creature defending player controls gets -3/-0 until the end of turn. We've seen guys like this. This is the most I've seen it like minus out something, which is kind of nice. But anything
Yeah.
with like 3 attack power has some pretty decent toughness to just still block this thing.
And it's a 2/1. They just typically say, "Okay, I'll take 2." Like it just I don't know, it just doesn't feel like it attacks for nearly enough. The only upside on this card I feel like is if you're in like the blue black crimes deck and you want to commit crimes every single turn, then I can see this being reasonable.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good for committing crimes and it's good for just going wide, and it's so much better in multiples. They just can never block your stuff and kill it. Like they can never trade with it, right? So then they resort to racing and you usually win those races.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it in action. I
Yeah, I
don't
would
think it.
too. I mean, I could be wrong for sure.
I think this is one of those things where Roby would have like a great opening hand win rate and just talk about how great this card is opening hand. But I feel like when
Every time
drawn,
you
it's
drop deck,
probably
if
bad.
you're behind, it just it feels awful. It's 2/1.
I mean,
Like,
if you're in a deck that actively wants these and you're ever behind, 90% of your top decks are gonna feel awful. Like if you're an aggro deck, you know what I mean? Like
yeah, but this one would feel especially awful. It's just like it does nothing on defense.
yeah.
I agree with you, Joel.
For mine, and this one might be a little controversial, I have Stop Cold. It's 3 and a blue for a flash enchantment aura where you enchant artifact or creature, and then it's just one of the tap down ones. You tap enchanted permanent, and it loses all abilities and doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. In my experience, there were just too many ways for you to still like care about having that creature in play. Like, it's you can use like Tumbleweed Rising to still make a big creature when your guy's been tapped down. I ended up there was a game next to me and someone just used Corrupted Conviction to sacrifice their creature and draw 2 cards for 1 mana. Right? It just feels like there's a lot of ways and a lot of different colors to get value out of still having a creature that's on the board. It's not actually gone.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I played it and it felt very bad. I was just so hard up for removal that I played it, but it just felt bad every game. Or I was just worried about them just having some way to remove it the entire game.
Yeah. It feels like it's gonna be your fail safe, like begrudgingly playable removal slot spell that you'd rather have anything else.
yeah, it is removal in blue though, and that's why I was saying like maybe it's a little controversial. It's like sometimes you just gotta play the removal, right?
I'm glad
Yep.
they upgraded a little bit and says the creature loses all abilities. That's kind of nice. You really don't see that many
I think
decks.
I'd prefer if they had the shuffle text from last set where you could pay like blue and shuffle it in. Like I liked
That
that.
that
It
felt
wasn't
like
it wasn't that great in the set, don't get me wrong,
yeah,
but I did prefer like that upside of being able to get rid of it permanently.
yeah.
Next up, we have our black commons. I have Boneyard Desecrator, 4 mana, 3/4 menace. You can pay 1 and a black to sack another creature and put a 1/1 counter on it. If an outlaw was sacrificed this way, you create a treasure token. I feel like this is super narrow. It's another, 4 mana, 3/4, which I think is not really what you want to be doing with 4 mana. And yeah, I haven't got to play with it yet. I haven't seen it played yet, but I have a feeling it's not going to be great.
I've got Overzealous Muscle. It's a 4 colorless, 1 black for a 5/4 ogre mercenary. When you commit a crime during your turn, Overzealous Muscle gains indestructible until the end of turn. I mean, the guy's already decently big. It just seems like just a ridiculous kind of line of text for him.
Yep. The really weird thing is whenever you commit a crime during your turn. Like
Yeah,
if it was whenever you commit a crime,
yeah.
it would be significantly better.
Oh
I
yeah,
think playtesting it definitely had just whenever you commit a crime, it gets indestructible. And then there were like too many feels bad moments where like you could never attack into it kind of thing, or you're just scared of them having it. Right.
yeah.
But in its current form, it just feels not great. Like
Yep.
for mine, I have Ambush Gigapede. It's 4 and 2 black for a 6/2 with flash. And when it ETBs, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn. So in Magical Christmas Dreamland, you flash this in after they attack, you kill something, you block, you kill something else. It's this super clean 2-for-1 with nothing going wrong. But the thing you killed when it ETBs, it's gonna be fairly small. And then it's a 6/2, so you're never actually ambushing anything. You're just trading, right? You can
Yeah.
ambush a mercenary token if they had something else that was smaller to kill, right? That giving -2/-2 is relevant. But it's just so much mana for a creature that doesn't really win you the game. It kind of stops your opponent from winning a little bit. Like I'm not a big fan.
Yep. Seems like a best case scenario 2-for-1, but worst case scenario, almost nothing. So
For 60, it's just so much.
yes. You don't want to pay 6 for almost nothing. My least favorite red common, I have Rodeo Pyromancers. That's 3 and a red for a 3/4. When you cast your first spell each turn, add red. I think your 4 slot's just going to be so contested for good creatures that your 4 and 5 beyond slots have to be super good, and this guy's not it.
Yeah, it's kind
Agreed.
of a scary card where they play it, and you like worry that they're gonna untap, cast something, get mana, cast another big spell, just kind of go off. I feel like the majority of the time, it's just gonna be a 4 mana 3/4 that doesn't do all that much.
Yeah, has no other keywords. It's just not really doing that much. Yeah,
Or they cast like a 5 drop, and then they cast a 2/2, like a 2 drop, and you're like, oh, okay.
I put one that's a little controversial. I'm sure you're gonna hate me for this one, or just get me on my case about it. But Reckless Lackey, it's a 1/2 for 1 red, first strike haste, Goblin Pirate, and then for 2 colorless and a red, you can sacrifice the lackey, draw a card, and create a treasure token. I don't know. It just doesn't seem where I want to be, but I'm sure this guy has a place in a lot of decks.
I don't know, dude. I think aggro is gonna be rough, and if you are aggro, I don't even know that this is the guy you want. Like
Dang! Woo!
the the only deck I see this dude being good in is if you have a billion mercenaries. But if you have a billion mercenaries, everybody's good. So like, why play a 1 drop?
I don't
Dude,
know. It is a really push one drop.
yeah.
Well,
Like
like, yeah, that's true. You
you
have to
can just
support it with combat tricks. Like, I don't know. I'm not with it.
maybe.
Damn, that's the
I don't
aggro.
tend to draft those decks, but if I was in it, I could definitely see this just feeling great.
There are some sets where this card would be absolutely bonkers, like for sure.
Mhm.
I just feel like this ain't the set. What do you got, Joel?
My next one, I have the Iron Fist Pulverizer. It's 4 and a red for a 4/5 reach. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, it deals 2 damage to target opponent, and you scry one. So we mentioned this earlier as just a card that it's not very impressive, right? By the time you get to 5, you're not double spelling much. The one kind of cool upside this card has is it combines the double spell deck with the crime deck because it deals it to target opponent instead
Yeah.
of each opponent. But it's slow, it's clunky. You're mostly gonna play it if you feel like you're in red and you need a reach creature.
Yep. I like how their philosophy was like everything that might not be good enough, they just tack scry one onto.
Yeah, scry one and commit a crime. Yep.
Yeah.
Next up, we have least favorite green commons. My first one is Reach for the Sky. It's 4 mana for a flash aura. You enchant a creature, it gets +3/+2 in reach, and when Reach for the Sky is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. This is just like a card that you're taking a big risk with, and potential for blowout so high, but the upside for it is not as high. Like it's not worth the risk type card.
Yeah, this is no rancor. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not even that it's not even close to that 6 mana spell that fights two things, right? So if you're going to be taking a risk like that and you really have to work on your timing and all of that, then why, like, this is not the card that you would do that for.
Yeah.
Like, this is a card that you, like, kid up to a dude on turn 3 or turn 4, and you're just like, I hope this sticks, and, like, I can just have a big dude and win the game. And that plan often does not work.
Nah. Yeah, when I was looking for green bad things that I didn't like, Reach for the Sky was one of the first things that came to mind. I ended up settling on Dover Grizzly. It's a 2 colorless, 1 green for a 4/2 bear mount. Whenever Dover Grizzly attacks while saddled, creatures you control gain trample until the end of turn, saddle 1. I don't know, there's just so many good things to do in green that I just feel like this guy's just not getting there. That toughness just, you really only get one attack with this guy. And when he's saddled, he doesn't really protect himself per se. You're trying to get some big swings with this guy, and he just dies the next turn. Or he dies the turn he swings.
Yep.
And it feels like it's trading down for a 2-drop so
Oh,
much.
yeah.
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 Mhm.
For mine, I have Bristlepack Sentry. It's 1 in a green for 3/3 with Defender. As long as you control a creature with power 4 or greater, it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. So I'm just never a fan of these cards. I'm always lower on the Defender that can attack than literally everybody else playing the set because it just never feels like it works out for me. It's you play your 2 mana 3/3 and they just like don't care. They're attacking with a 2 mana 3/1 with first strike, and it's like, well, it's not blocking here, right? And it's not attacking either because I don't have anything big enough because they killed that. It's just for me, I hate the defenders that can attack. So
Yep.
But
I just see him as kind of like a necessary evil for the decks that want to go late.
see, I want to be playing a mana dork on 2, not whatever this is. Like,
Yeah, I mean, you want to, but
I
you
want
won't
to as
always be
well.
able to.
I mean, how good is this with Reach for the Sky, right?
Yeah.
that's cute. Hey, let's put 2 bad cards in our deck, and when we draw both of them and they don't have removal, maybe, just maybe it's good.
But hear me out. When we draw both of them and they do have removal, we get to draw a card which could be good.
If they don't respond with the removal.
Yes.
This guy just feels like saddle fodder, right? Like you just throw him in the decks with saddle, and he's just like your saddle dude.
Yeah, I could see it.
Throw them in the decks with saddle, throw them in the decks that you just, are super late and you have to do something
Yeah.
early. But
Like eventually he'll be able to attack, right? Like maybe.
maybe.
He doesn't normally have profitable attack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
by then it's really bad attacks, right?
Yep.
Oh man.
Yep.
All right.
Well, I think that's all we got for today.
That's it.
We'll catch you boys on the flippity flop.
Happy drafting.